So this is a quick look at the Roland BC-13 or Bus Converter 13. And this handy little gadget takes a 24-pin input, the older style vintage Roland guitar 24-pin signal, and converts it to a 13-pin signal. So it's called a Bus Converter 13. You'll see we've got 3 connectors. There's for the 13-pin, there's for the 24-pin. Both of those I think are pretty obvious. And then we have an additional 1/4-inch input, which gives us more control over the normal guitar sound, and we'll talk about that in a second. So let's get this thing fired up. I've got a Gibson Les Paul here with the LPK package vintage Roland guitar electronics in it. This is the same package that was found in the Roland G303 and G808, and it was a retrofit kit for a number of other Roland Ready guitars, and we've got that hooked up to a Boss SY-1000. So to get things going, all we need to do is, let's see, we're going to plug in the 24-pin cable. We got that in there, and then we're going to plug in our 13-pin, and now we're all set. I'm just going to fire up the SY-1000. So right away, you're going to notice that none of the controls work anymore. The LFO control knob does not do anything at all. This is because we've gone from the 24-pin format to the 13-pin format, and we've lost a lot of those control voltages. The balance knob does not do anything at this point. The guitar volume does not work, but the guitar tone does work. So what are we left with? Well, the filter cutoff is now our synth volume. The GK mode switch changes patches. And finally, the resonance knob works as like a 3-position switch. When it's fully clockwise, we only get the guitar synth sound. When it's fully counterclockwise, we only get the normal guitar output. And if it's in an area that's in between these two extremes, probably for most of the knobs travel, you get both the guitar and the synth output. But there's no, like, it's a switch. There's no sort of merging between the two. So I'm going to go up to a patch that I created for another video where we're layering. This is a layer of a modeled nylon guitar with the actual pickup. So if I turn the resonance knob all the way in the clockwise position, we're only hearing the modeled sound. If I turn the knob all the way counterclockwise, we're only hearing the output from the pickups. And if I put the knob somewhere in the middle, we're going to hear both. Now, this isn't a blend control. This is just like a 3-position switch. It's like the same switch that you have on a GK3, either guitar, guitar and synth, or just synth. We've got no volume control, but we've got a tone control. So how do we get the volume control to work? We are going to use a standard 1/4-inch cable, and we're going to take the normal 1/4-inch output from this guitar, and we're going to plug it into that additional input on the BC-13. So let me get that plugged in here on the side. And then we're going to plug this in over here. Great. So with that 1/4-inch cable plugged in, now the normal guitar volume and tone controls work. So we've got the knob fully counterclockwise. We're only hearing the normal output from the guitar. A little noise in that pot. And we can hear that the tone control works as well. So what's going on here? Well, when Roland originally came up with their whole guitar synth format in the late 70s, there was not even a 1/4-inch output on the original GS500. If you had that guitar, you had to have the synth plugged in. And Roland designed their system so that the signals coming from the guitar were all super hot line level signals, which made sense. And then you had voltage controlled amplifiers in the guitar synth that handled that. So that means that the signal that's coming from these pickups without this 1/4-inch cable is tapped directly off the pickup, and it has no volume control at all. It's just straight hot line level signal, which is really good because rather than having sort of a weaker signal from the pickups, you've got such a nice hot signal that there's very little noise. And these original Roland 24-pin cables were not shielded either, but they didn't really need that much shielding because the signals were very hot line level signals. So when we plug this 1/4-inch cable in, it's just like that little 1/4-inch to mini cable that you might have on a modern Roland GK3 that taps the signal coming from the pickups and then adds that into the signal. So that's a basic look at the BC-13 before we get into any more details about the volume controls. So 24-pin in, 13-pin out, and then if you want to take advantage of the volume control on the guitar, you need to add in this additional 1/4-inch cable. Next thing we'll do is just take a real quick look at the volume scaling on the BC-13. Now, when you're using the BC-13 with your 13-pin synth, you may notice that the volume drops a little bit. And you might think, well, what's going on? I'm not getting the same level of output. Let's just make sure that we have everything set up correctly. So I'm looking at my GK settings for this guitar. And that all looks pretty solid. And under the GK type, I have the GK2A selected. And this is the setting I recommend you use. The GK2A setting is the setting, the GK2A is closest to what the BC-13, how the BC-13 is set up. So don't use the GK3, you want to go with the GK2A. That's going to get you your best results. So our input settings look pretty solid here. What else could be causing a drop off in the volume? Well, the volume of our synth is controlled by the filter knob on the guitar. Let's see, I'm going to change the... That's turning the filter knob up and down. Let's look and see how that's assigned. Go under Control Assignments, and we can see that GK volume over here is assigned to patch level. So let's see, what is our patch level? So we're going to go in the tone editor, click on the master button, and patch level is 88. It's not 100. Now I'm going to turn the filter knob on the guitar, and sure enough, it maxes out at 88 instead of going all the way to 100. So what's happening here? Well, if we look in the original owner's manual notes for the BC-13, it says it can only be connected to the GR-50. So I don't have a GR-50 here, but it's quite possible that the sensitivity of the GR-50 is such that it would go from 0 to 100 or from 1 to 100. But we're only getting it up to 88. So if we have a look at the schematic, we can see that this pin 11, this is our filter cutoff. This signal first goes through a 1K resistor, and then this is the switch that's going to turn it on and off, the electronic switch. And then this is a 2.7K resistor. These two resistors in this configuration make up what we call a voltage divider. So if we increase the value of R1, this should also increase the maximum volume that we're getting from the unit. When I started making my clones, instead of using these two resistors, which is what I did when I built my first units, I replaced it with just a variable resistor, this VR1. So here is pin 11 in my BC-13 clone, and I would just calibrate this. I have another video on the BX-13 where I show how I calibrate this control. We don't have the option to calibrate with the BC-13, but what you can do is try different values out for this R1. And again, if you increase this from 2.7K, you should find that you're going to be getting more volume level from the BC-13. But that pretty much covers what you need to know about using the BC-13 with the Boss SY-1000 or any 13-pin synth. And I probably built hundreds of clones. They've all worked just fine. The last version, if you want to follow my design, I added a voltage-controlled amplifier inside of the units. You didn't need that second cable in order to use the volume control on the guitar. I think you're going to be able to find that it's one thing nice about a BC-13 or one of the clones, and I've noticed other folks are starting to sell clones too, is that it's a great way to match these really fantastic guitars. from the 70s and 80s that were built by Roland, or in this case, the guitar I'm using, this Gibson Les Paul. Be able to take these really nice, really well-built vintage guitar synth controllers and use these with the latest in technology. And again, I have to thank Barry Coates, who is so nice to loan me his BC-13 so I could make this little video for you.